They threw her out in disgrace, called her a fraud, a failure, a fallen daughter. But what they didn't know was, she wasn't broken. She was rebuilding. And when she came back, she didn't just return. She took back everything. This is the story of betrayal, resilience, and the woman who turned her shame into unstoppable power. Don't blink, you'll want to witness every second of this rise. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. It was a bright and hopeful morning in Hartsville. The town buzzed with excitement. Evelyn Hart, the beloved daughter of Richard Hart, was about to be named the youngest executive director in the history of Hart and Blackwood Holdings. The press had gathered, the shareholders were smiling, and the staff clapped as she walked into the grand conference hall wearing a flawless white pantsuit. Her hair was pinned back into a graceful chignon, and her smile was radiant. Everyone loved Evelyn. She was smart, kind, and fiercely loyal. Her late mother had passed away when she was young, and she had grown up under the watchful eye of her father and his second wife, Marissa. Though Marissa never truly welcomed Evelyn as her own, the world believed they were one happy family. Standing beside Evelyn was Daniel Blackwood, her fiancé and her father's business partner's son. They had grown up together, and their engagement was a match made in corporate heaven. Daniel looked sharp in a navy suit, his arm confidently around Evelyn's waist as photographers took pictures of the future of the company. But beneath the glamour and applause, dark plans were already in motion. That afternoon, just moments after the press left, the board meeting was called. Evelyn entered the boardroom with a file of her ideas for restructuring the international branches. She was excited. This was her first major step. Suddenly, the door slammed open. 2 police officers stepped inside. Evelyn Hart, one of them asked. She looked up, startled. Yes. You are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying financial records. The entire room gasped. Evelyn's folder fell from her hands as she stumbled back. What? That's impossible, she cried. There's been a mistake. The officers moved quickly, pulling her hands behind her back. Daniel, she screamed. Daniel, tell them. You know I didn't do this. He looked at her with cold eyes. I trusted you, he said quietly. I don't know who you really are anymore. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. Daniel, please. You've known me your whole life. This isn't true. Board members whispered among themselves. Her stepmother, Marissa, stood in the corner with a hand over her mouth, pretending to be shocked. But Evelyn caught the glint in her eyes, a flicker of satisfaction. The news spread like wildfire. Heiress thief. Corporate scandal rocks Hartsville. Evelyn Hart, from golden girl to felon. The trial started weeks later. Evidence surfaced, signed documents, offshore accounts, suspicious transactions. Evelyn sat silently in the courtroom, staring at the floor. None of the documents were hers. She had never seen the accounts. But every time she tried to speak, her own lawyer looked unsure. Her father, heartbroken and confused, stayed away. The betrayal broke him. He didn't even visit her. He suffered a stroke shortly after the trial began and died before she could see him again. Evelyn was cleared after months due to technicalities and inconsistencies in the evidence. But it was too late. Her name was ruined. The company was now under Marissa's control, with Daniel by her side. Her engagement was called off. Her house was sold. No one wanted to speak to her. The day she was released from holding, she returned to her childhood home. The gate wouldn't open. Access denied, said the security system. She knocked. Marissa opened the door with a glass of wine in hand. Oh, you're back, Marissa said, unbothered. I thought you might try. I just want to collect my things, Evelyn said. They've been donated, Marissa replied. The house belongs to the company now. And you don't work here anymore. Evelyn's throat tightened. My father would have never allowed this. Well, Marissa smirked, your father isn't here anymore, is he? The door shut. Evelyn walked away with only the clothes on her back and a suitcase she had left at a friend's. No money. No home. No family. No name. She boarded a train to London that night. London's busy streets offered a kind of anonymity Evelyn never knew she needed. No one knew her name. No one recognized her face. She found a small diner called Maggie's Corner that had a Help Wanted sign taped to the window. "I need work," Evelyn said softly. Maggie Jenkins, a grey-haired, tough-talking woman in her 60s, looked her up and down. "Name?" "Eva," Evelyn replied. She couldn't bear to say her real name. Maggie handed her an apron. "You can start by cleaning the kitchen." The work was hard. Grease, grime, long hours. She scrubbed floors, washed dishes, served coffee. She slept in a tiny attic room above the diner. The bed springs creaked, the window was cracked, but it was safe. Maggie was gruff but fair. After 2 months, she handed Evelyn a second-hand coat. "Getting cold. You'll need this." Evelyn looked up, touched. "Thank you." "You've got quiet eyes," Maggie said. "Like you've seen hell." Evelyn didn't respond. She just nodded. Every night, after work, Evelyn would sneak down to the public library. She borrowed books on law, finance, and business strategy. She read until the lights flickered off. She wrote in a notebook every night, mapping ideas, drawing charts, planning. She also wrote in her journal. The first page read, "They broke me. But they did not end me." She kept her head down. Saved money. One day, she applied for night school using a false name. She studied business law. It was slow. She often cried when no one was around. She missed her father. Missed the smell of home. Missed being someone. One rainy afternoon, Maggie found her crying in the back storage room. "Boy trouble?" Maggie asked. "No," Evelyn said, wiping her tears. "Life trouble." "Well, darling, life's a mean old dog. You gotta bite back sometimes." That night, Evelyn stared into the mirror in her room. Her skin had grown pale. Her cheeks were hollow. Her hands were rough from work. But her eyes, they were still sharp. Still hungry. She whispered to herself, "I will return. Not as the girl they broke, but as the woman they'll fear." Months passed. Then years. She moved up from the diner to a receptionist job at a tiny law firm. She worked hard, quietly gaining the trust of the partners. She asked questions, listened, took notes. She began advising on small cases, then larger ones. By her 4th year in London, she was one of the firm's quiet stars, even if they only knew her as Eva. Then, one day, as she passed by a newsstand, she froze. There on the cover of Business Weekly was a photo of Daniel and Marissa. The headline read, "Hart and Blackwood celebrates record year. Marissa Hart named Woman of the Year." Evelyn stood still as people rushed around her. She picked up the magazine and flipped through it. Their smiles burned into her eyes. The article praised them for recovering the company after past scandals. There was no mention of Evelyn. Her stomach turned. She walked into the nearest cafe, sat down, and pulled out her phone. She opened her notes app and wrote, "Step 1. Reclaim identity. Step 2. Return to Hartsville. Step 3. Take everything back." She looked at the article again. Her hands were shaking. Not with fear. With purpose. The next morning, she wrote a letter to Mr. Crane, her father's old legal partner, who had quietly defended her in court years ago. "Dear Mr. Crane, it's Evelyn. I hope you remember me. I never got to thank you for believing in me. I'm writing to ask if you still have access to my father's company agreements and original legal documents. There are things I need to understand. I'm coming back. Not for revenge. For justice. Evelyn Hart." A week later, she received his reply. He did remember her. He had everything she needed. That night, she packed her things into 2 suitcases. Her fingers trembled as she folded her coat. She whispered, "I'm ready now." Before she left, Maggie hugged her tightly. "Where you going?" she asked. "Home," Evelyn replied. "Make sure they remember you." "Oh, they will," Evelyn said, a fire in her eyes. The train slid into Hartsville Station with a metallic groan. Evelyn Hart stood, her fingers curled tightly around the worn leather handle of her suitcase. The platform hadn't changed, still lined with chipped benches, rusting rails, and a giant billboard showing a smiling Marissa Hart under the words Woman of the Year. She stepped onto the platform, her breath fogging in the cold air. Her heart thudded in her chest as she took in the town where everything had gone wrong. Evelyn had returned, not as the disgraced heiress everyone remembered, but as a woman forged in fire. She wore a long black coat with a high collar, her dark brown hair now styled in a sharp bob that just kissed her jaw. Her boots clicked against the pavement with quiet confidence. Her skin was paler, her body slimmer, but her eyes held steel. No one recognized her. And that was her greatest weapon. She walked past the Hart and Blackwood Tower, its glass facade reflecting the sky like a cold mirror. Every inch of the building reeked of the betrayal she had endured, Marissa's lies, Daniel's silence, her father's absence. But Evelyn didn't pause. She didn't look up. Not yet. Her new headquarters was across the street, tucked into the third floor of a building that had seen better days. The space smelled faintly of old paper and fresh paint. It had taken months of careful savings and legal gymnastics, but it was hers, registered under the name E.H. Holdings. Tom, the bakery owner downstairs, peeked in with a steaming cup of tea. "You sure you don't want a croissant with that revenge?" he joked. Evelyn smiled faintly. Not today. She had bought a defunct logistics company, Hart and Hart Shipping, once a minor subsidiary of her father's empire. It had been discarded by Marissa after the scandal. No one noticed when Evelyn quietly repurchased it under a new name. She hired people who had been stepped on by the very company that once bore her name, disrespected vendors, laid off managers, even rival tech developers. She sat in the center of her sparse office, staring at the whiteboard that held her plan. Her fingers traced 3 words she had written in capital letters. Root. Rebuild. Reclaim. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "I heard you're back. Need to talk." Uh-oh. Olivia Myers. Once her best friend. Now, the town's top gossip blogger. They met at a coffee shop the next morning. Olivia was already seated, clutching her latte nervously. "Evelyn," she breathed when she saw her. "I almost didn't believe it." Evelyn sat opposite her, calm and unreadable. "I figured you'd be the first to know. I kept quiet. When it all happened, your arrest, I tried to reach you, but your number was gone." "You ran stories," Evelyn said. Olivia looked ashamed. "Only what I was told. I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't know Marissa was capable of all that." Evelyn leaned in. "Do you still have your connections?" Olivia nodded. "Yes." "Then help me. Not to get revenge, but to show the truth." Back at her office, Evelyn began analyzing company records, purchasing data, acquisition trends. She realized Marissa and Daniel had been laundering money through fake suppliers, manipulating contracts to hide millions. She quietly began forming alliances. First with local tech developers Marissa had ignored. Then with international vendors Hart and Blackwood had dropped. She treated them with respect, offered better terms, and made them stakeholders in the new company's mission. Within weeks, murmurs began around town about the mysterious new business growing across from the tower. Daniel noticed first. "She's back," he whispered to Marissa, tossing a file on her desk. "She's buying up suppliers, clients, and she's doing it fast." Marissa's eyes narrowed. "I want her gone. Now." That evening, a building inspector visited Evelyn's office. "Your wiring's outdated. You'll need to shut down until further notice." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. The wiring was just replaced last month." He hesitated. Just following orders. Then expect a call from my legal team. After he left, she called Olivia. They've noticed. So what do we do? Evelyn's voice was quiet but clear. Now, we move faster. Marissa Hart stood in her private office, overlooking the city. Her white silk blouse and diamond earrings sparkled as she swirled wine in a crystal glass. But her eyes were dark with worry. This was supposed to be over, she said. Daniel sat opposite her, scrolling through spreadsheets. We underestimated her. She's not just back. She's calculating. And she's winning. Marissa slammed the glass down, wine splashing on the floor. Then find out what she knows. Now. Meanwhile, Evelyn was expanding. She signed deals with 3 international vendors Marissa had once bullied into silence. She bought a fleet of eco-friendly trucks. She launched a social media campaign under the slogan, Business with Heart. Public opinion began shifting. Slowly, people remembered the Evelyn they had once adored. Evelyn visited her father's old lawyer, Mr. Crane, and reviewed the original partnership agreements. In them, she found a clause. If the company's leadership was found guilty of internal fraud, control could revert to the original heir. All she needed was proof. It's risky, Mr. Crane warned. So was trusting them, Evelyn replied. Daniel tried to meet with her. Let's talk, he said, catching her outside a conference hall. She turned, her voice cold. Talk about what? How you watched them destroy me and said nothing. I didn't know what to believe. I was confused. You weren't confused. You were comfortable. He looked hurt. You've changed. No, she said. I just finally see clearly. That night, Evelyn received an anonymous package. Inside were 2 flash drives. One labeled Ledgers. The other audio. She played the audio first. It was a recording. Marissa's voice. Just make sure the fake invoices are buried deep. If anyone finds them, we blame Evelyn. Daniel's voice. And if she talks? Marissa, who's going to believe the girl who already fell? Evelyn's hands trembled. She clutched the drives to her chest. The next morning, she called Olivia. It's time. The sun rose slowly over Hartsville, bathing the glass tower of Hart and Blackwood in gold. But Evelyn Hart wasn't watching the sunrise from her window. She was in her office, her fingers trembling as she stared at the flash drives on her desk. The voices still echoed in her ears. Marissa's calculating tone, Daniel's complicit silence. She clicked play again, just to be sure it was real. Just make sure the fake invoices are buried deep. If anyone finds them, we blame Evelyn. Daniel's voice responded faintly, and if she talks? Who's going to believe the girl who already fell? Evelyn closed her eyes. It wasn't just evidence, it was justice. She forwarded the files to Mr. Crane and Olivia Myers with a brief message. Let's begin. Mr. Crane called her within the hour. This is more than enough to reopen the case. The board will have to investigate. Not just the board, Evelyn said. The public. Olivia, now editor-in-chief of Hartsville Buzz, called her 10 minutes later. Her voice was electric with energy. Evelyn, this is dynamite. With your permission, I'll run a full exposé, this weekend's front page. No names, Evelyn said. Not yet. Use initials, shadows, hints. I want them to feel the pressure first. By Saturday morning, Hartsville was buzzing. Headline: Stolen Empire? Anonymous whistleblower reveals decade-long fraud at leading conglomerate. The article detailed embezzlement, false financial reports, fake suppliers, and even offshore accounts. Though names were hidden, everyone in Hartsville knew who the article pointed to. At the Hart and Blackwood board meeting, Marissa slammed the paper on the table. Who leaked this garbage? She snapped. Daniel's face was pale. The article references documents no one should have. Evelyn has them. Board members exchanged uneasy glances. Some had already received calls from investors. "We need to address this," one said. "Publicly." "And what?" "Admit that she was innocent all along." Marissa growled. Meanwhile, Evelyn was preparing her next move. She arranged a private press event through Olivia. The invitation was simple: a statement from Evelyn Hart, Monday at 10 a.m. Marissa's blood boiled. She called a crisis PR firm. She scheduled a press conference of her own, same time, same day. But Evelyn wasn't trying to compete. She was orchestrating a storm. When Monday arrived, the courtyard in front of City Hall was packed with reporters. Olivia introduced Evelyn with a tight, emotional hug. Evelyn stepped forward, her head high, dressed in a navy blue power suit that mirrored the one she had worn the day she was arrested. She looked at the cameras, the crowd, the town that had turned its back on her. 3 years ago, I was falsely accused of crimes I did not commit. I was humiliated, stripped of my name, and cast out by the very people who once stood beside me. She paused. The microphones trembled in the breeze. I have remained silent for years, not out of fear, but because I was rebuilding my life, my truth, my strength. Today, I bring you proof, audio recordings, forged documents, and financial trails that point to those who betrayed me. Reporters shouted questions. Evelyn raised a hand. Let the investigation unfold. But know this: I never left because I was guilty. I left because they needed me gone. I'm here now. And I'm not leaving again. Cheers erupted from parts of the crowd. Olivia's camera crew caught every moment. That same night, the board of Hart and Blackwood held an emergency meeting. The audio was authenticated. Forensic accountants were called in. Evelyn's documents matched suspicious ledgers dating back years. Marissa's voice echoed through the boardroom speakers. Just make sure the fake invoices are buried deep. A silence followed. Heavy. Damning. The chairman finally spoke. I move for an immediate suspension of Marissa Hart pending further investigation. Daniel stood. I object. This is being blown out of proportion. Your voice is on that tape too, someone said coldly. News outlets ran follow-up stories. Disgraced heiress returns with evidence Hartsville's queen of deceit unmasked. Marissa tried to run counterattacks. She held press interviews, hired spin doctors. But every step only made her guilt clearer. Daniel tried to distance himself. He contacted Evelyn privately. His message: I want to make things right. Can we talk? Her reply: now you want to speak? Speak to my lawyer. Evelyn filed a motion to reclaim her stake in Hart and Blackwood. With the clause in her father's contract and evidence of internal fraud, her claim was valid. The case went public. A hearing was set. On the day of the hearing, Evelyn arrived in a tailored grey suit. Her head was held high, every movement deliberate. Marissa entered moments later. Her usual confidence was gone. She looked smaller, weaker, exposed. The judge listened to both sides. The evidence was presented: the forged contracts, bank statements, secret recordings. Evelyn's voice never trembled. I did not come here to punish them. I came to restore what they tried to destroy: my name, my father's legacy, and the trust of a community that was lied to. The courtroom held its breath. In a firm voice, the judge spoke: due to the overwhelming evidence of fraud, conspiracy, and corporate manipulation, I hereby rule in favor of Evelyn Hart. Effective immediately, she is reinstated as the rightful shareholder and executive director of Hart and Blackwood. Applause broke out. Reporters rushed out to send updates. Evelyn turned to Marissa, who stared back in disbelief. You never thought I'd come back, Evelyn said softly. Marissa's lips quivered. You were supposed to disappear. But I didn't, Evelyn said. And now I own the roof you tried to bury me under. Back at the building she once called home, Evelyn stepped into her father's office. Everything was the same: the oak desk, the leather chair, the painting he loved. A wave of emotion hit her. She sat down slowly, ran her fingers along the surface. "Dad," she whispered, "we're home." Maggie, her old boss from the diner, had flown in for the hearing. "Looks like you made 'em remember you," Maggie said, hugging her. Evelyn smiled. "I made sure they'd never forget." That evening, Evelyn stood on the rooftop of the tower, watching the city lights flicker. The night air was cool and quiet. She didn't just reclaim a name. She had rewritten a legacy. The air in the executive suite was thick with silence. Evelyn sat at the head of the table where her father once presided, surrounded by department heads, analysts, and legal advisors. Just 2 weeks had passed since the court reinstated her as executive director, but she already felt the weight of leadership settle on her shoulders. "Before we proceed," she said, her voice even, "I want everyone in this room to understand one thing. This company was built by my father on trust, integrity, and service. That legacy was nearly destroyed. I am not here to play politics. I am here to rebuild from the ruins." Some nodded. A few looked nervous. One older executive, Mr. Hawthorne, spoke up. "We've been waiting for someone to lead like Richard Hart did. Welcome back, Evelyn." She gave him a tight nod of gratitude. "Let's begin." The meeting rolled into numbers, crisis strategy, internal reshuffling. Evelyn kept meticulous notes. She listened more than she spoke. But every now and then, her gaze would drift to the far end of the table, where Daniel used to sit. Meanwhile, Daniel sat alone in his apartment, flipping through news channels. Every outlet was buzzing about Evelyn's reinstatement. His phone rang constantly, investors, former allies, and journalists. He silenced it all. His apartment was cold, unfurnished. The life he had with Evelyn, the legacy he thought he'd inherit through Marissa's schemes, it was gone. He called Marissa. She didn't pick up. He left a message, "You promised we'd win. We didn't just lose the company, we lost everything. And she's not the same Evelyn. She's smarter, harder. We should have known better." Evelyn visited her father's grave that weekend. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. Leaves danced around her feet as she approached the marble headstone. She knelt down, brushing some dust off the inscription. "Richard Hart, a builder of dreams. A father. A visionary. I hope I've made you proud," she whispered. "I wish I'd been stronger when you needed me. But I'm stronger now." Her voice cracked. She wiped away a tear. "I took back what you built. But it cost more than I thought it would." She stayed there until the sky turned amber, then stood and walked away, leaving a single white rose behind. That Monday, Evelyn launched the company's first transparency audit. She hired an external firm to analyze all departments, clean out corruption, and publish findings publicly. It was a bold move. And a risky one. The board questioned her. "Are you sure this won't backfire?" asked Ms. Delaney, the CFO. "If it does," Evelyn said, "then we deserve it. If we claim to be a new company, we must act like one." Within days, hundreds of unethical contracts, kickbacks, and ghost accounts came to light, traced to former leadership. Daniel's name was mentioned. So was Marissa's. The public reaction was explosive. But Evelyn didn't flinch. She called a press conference. "I promised accountability. That includes naming names, even if they once shared my last name." It was the first time she publicly acknowledged the full extent of her stepmother's betrayal. That night, her inbox flooded with support. Former employees reached out. Vendors offered praise. People believed again. But power came with new enemies. On a rainy Wednesday morning, Evelyn sat in her office sipping black coffee. Olivia burst in unannounced, holding a tabloid. "Have you seen this?" Evelyn took the paper. The headline screamed, "Back from the ashes, but at what cost?" Secrets behind Evelyn Hart's rise. The article was cruel. It insinuated she manipulated public sympathy, exploited her father's death, and used underhanded tactics to reclaim power. Anonymous sources. Evelyn asked. Olivia frowned. Probably Daniel. Or someone trying to claw their way back. Evelyn set the paper down. Let them talk. Truth doesn't hide. But the article opened old wounds. Online trolls flooded her social media. She received hate mail, death threats. The team began urging her to respond. She gathered her core staff. I won't dignify every rumor, she said. But I'll share my truth, openly, honestly. One time. Then we move forward. That night, Evelyn sat in front of a camera. No script. No PR team. She spoke from her office. 3 years ago, I lost everything. My reputation. My home. My family. I spent nights scrubbing floors in London, eating leftover soup in a cold attic, trying to survive while the world laughed at me. I returned not for vengeance, but for truth. For the chance to finish what my father started. I don't want to be a queen. I want to be a builder, like he was. And if my story is uncomfortable for some people, so be it. I stand by every step I've taken. The video went viral. Millions watched. Comments poured in. This is leadership. I cried watching this. She's more than a CEO. She's a symbol of resilience. Brands began reaching out for partnerships. Young women wrote letters thanking her for showing strength. But not everyone was happy. At a dim hotel bar outside town, Marissa watched the video with clenched fists. She's poisoning the narrative, she muttered. A man approached her, tall, in a trench coat. You said you had a job for me, he asked. She slid an envelope across the table. I want her undone. Not dead, but finished. The man nodded. Consider it done. Meanwhile, Evelyn was preparing to launch the Heart Women's Initiative, a fund for women-owned startups in honor of her mother. I want her memory to mean something, she told Maggie over the phone. She didn't live to see me rise. But her strength is why I could. Maggie chuckled. You've come far, darling. Just don't forget who you are beneath the steel. I haven't, Evelyn said. But I've also learned how to wear the armor. As the event approached, her team booked a venue, press invitations went out, and sponsors lined up. Then, days before the launch, Evelyn received an email. No sender name. No subject. Only one sentence. You stole the company. Now we're taking your life back piece by piece. Attached was a photo of her father's old office. Ransacked. Her heart raced. She called security. Called the police. But the damage was done. Someone had broken into her sanctuary. Not to steal, but to send a message. Evelyn stood alone in the dark office that night. The glass from the broken window sparkled on the floor like cruel confetti. She picked up a torn photo, her and her father on her graduation day. The frame was shattered. Tears welled in her eyes. Not from fear. From fury. They want war, she whispered. Her reflection stared back at her in the window. Hardened. Resolute. Then they'll get one. The hum of Hart and Blackwood's elevators sounded sharper that morning. Evelyn stepped out into the executive floor, greeted by silence and tight glances. The break-in had shaken her team. No documents were stolen, but personal drawers had been upturned, photos shattered, and a single message had been left behind in red ink across her father's old desk. We'll bury you again. Security footage showed no clear image. No traceable prints. Just shadows and silence. Evelyn entered her new office, a temporary space while renovations continued upstairs. She shut the door and leaned against it, eyes closed. For a fleeting moment, she allowed the exhaustion to wrap around her like a shroud. But then she straightened her shoulders. She walked to her desk and picked up the broken frame of her and her father, him in his favorite navy blazer, her in her graduation gown. Glass still clung to the edges. Her thumb brushed a small cut on her palm she hadn't noticed before. A knock on the door. It was her assistant, Kelly. Daniel Hawthorne is in the lobby. He says it's urgent. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Send him up. Daniel looked smaller than she remembered. Not physically, but in spirit. His once confident posture sagged. His suit was wrinkled. He carried a file folder under one arm like a burden. I brought you something, he said as he entered. You brought me betrayal 3 years ago, Evelyn replied coldly, not offering a seat. Daniel didn't argue. He placed the folder on her desk and stepped back. It's every shell company Marissa created. Every fake vendor. Bank statements. Transfers. Email logs. All of it. She planned everything. How to oust you, how to cover it up, how to twist the board's loyalty. And you went along with it. I didn't know, he started, then stopped. No. I knew. I just didn't want to lose my place. Evelyn folded her arms. And now that she's lost hers, you're what, looking to switch sides again? I'm trying to make it right. She said nothing for a long while. Then, leave the file. I'll have my legal team review it. I'm not asking for redemption, he said quietly. Just less damnation. As he left, Evelyn flipped open the folder. Her hands trembled. The documents inside weren't just proof, they were devastating. Enough to dismantle every lie Marissa had spun. She called Olivia. Get ready. I'm sending something over. Tonight, we go public. The exposé broke across every major news outlet the next morning. Stolen legacy. New evidence unmasks web of fraud at Hart and Blackwood. The article included bank records, code-named accounts, even voice transcriptions implicating Marissa in wire fraud, cybercrimes, and political bribery. Olivia's team had verified every detail. Social media erupted. Investors pulled out. Politicians who once praised Marissa scrambled to distance themselves. And at the center of it all was Evelyn, no longer the disgraced heiress, but a force of reckoning. Still, it wasn't over. At her next press conference, Evelyn stood before a sea of cameras and microphones. The backdrop read, "We do not rebuild in silence." I was silenced once, she began. And I know what it feels like to lose your name, your home, your safety. But I also know what it means to rise. And now, I give voice not just to myself, but to every woman who has been betrayed and buried by the powerful. Applause thundered. Reporters shouted questions. One asked, "What happens to Marissa now?" Evelyn simply replied, "Justice." Later that night, she received a phone call. "Ms. Hart, this is Detective Fallon. Marissa Hart has been taken into custody." Evelyn exhaled deeply. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just whispered, "Finally." 1 month later, the Hart Women's Initiative launched globally. Evelyn stood before an audience of thousands, many in person, many more online. The venue was draped in soft white and gold. A photo of her mother, Judith Hart, graced the stage. Beside it, Evelyn stood in a fitted cream suit, her hair pulled into a sleek bun. She stepped up to the podium, hands calm on either side. "When I was 17, she began, "my mother told me something I didn't understand until now. She said, real power doesn't shout. It listens, it lifts, and it lasts." /N/NIVE been humiliated, mocked, exiled. And now I stand here not because I wanted revenge, but because I refused to disappear. She paused. Faces watched her with awe. Some teary-eyed. Some fists clenched in solidarity. The Hart Women's Initiative is not just a fund. It's a promise to give women the resources, mentorship, and legal backing to build their dreams without compromise. The crowd rose in applause. Olivia caught her eye from the side of the stage, wiping away tears. After the event, Evelyn stepped out onto the rooftop of the tower. Dusk painted the city in gold and lilac. She stood in the very place where her father once told her, "One day, this will all be yours, but only if you fight for it." She had fought. and won. But power, she'd learned, came at a cost. It meant knowing when to rise above vengeance. It meant trusting again, even after betrayal. It meant building something that wouldn't just bear her name, but outlast it. Later that week, Daniel sent a single envelope. Inside was a letter. Evelyn, you were right. About everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do hope you find peace, not just with the company, but with yourself. You don't need to carry the past forever. Some of us were too weak to walk with you. But I see now, you were always the strong one. Daniel. She read it once, then again, and then tore it in two, not from bitterness, but from closure. In the final days of summer, Evelyn visited her father's grave one last time that year. She placed 2 white roses. One for him. One for her mother. I kept my promise, she whispered. And I finally let go of the shame. It doesn't own me anymore. Behind her, wind rustled the trees softly. She looked back at the city skyline, then toward the tower that now bore her new name, Heart Reimagined. As she walked away, her reflection shimmered briefly in a puddle. No longer the girl who ran, but the woman who stayed. The woman who came back in shame. And remained in power. If you felt every twist, every heartbreak, and every moment she stood her ground, then you already know, this wasn't just a comeback. It was a takeover. Like, comment, and share this video if you believe in rising from the ashes stronger than ever. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next powerful story that could change the way you see strength, success, and survival. And tell us in the comments, what would you do if they tried to erase your name?